Let's talk about society rules and costumes. All right. So, like for example, we're going to talk about the roles that societal rules and the people in those roles following those rules have to deal with, and at the same time, the roles that the costume that shows that they play that role end up going ahead and playing it, and the symbolism of it. All right. So, like, for example, let's talk about veterans. All right? Veterans. Hey, the support the troops, that whole thing. All right? So, we're going to talk about a little bit about ethicality of recognizing said veterans. All right? And the contribution that they've played. All right? Now, understand. There are rules of engagement that need to be followed. All right? So, think of the costume. Think of the valor. All right? Like, all that. Think about the pedestal put on glorified. All right? And then recognizing good apples and bad apples. All right? So, like, for example, when somebody deploys off to war, you assume that they were doing their job and that they were doing their job the way they were supposed to do it. And you have to take their word for it. All right? So when they deploy, they are out of the force out of anybody else but the Department of Defense. All right? So the Department of Defense job is to go ahead and give a story to explain the necessity of said exercise. All right? So, when deploying, you're going to have people that take their job very seriously. You're going to have people that don't take their job seriously at all. You have people that are going to follow the rules. And then you have people that are going to attempt to bend the rules. All right? Now, the people that attempt to bend the rules, being like, well, technically I didn't break the rules, but I bent them a little bit. Ultimately, the outcome ended up, it could have been a lot worse. Could have been a lot better, but it could have been a lot worse. All right? But either which way, nobody knows who's who. Come back, if they make it back alive. And then who's left? Everybody that's left, they're all in those uniforms. Those uniforms, they also have the Department of Defense going ahead and saying, yes, not only did they do their job, they did an exceptional job. Glamorize these people. All right? So, that's the treatment of everyone that it is assumed they did their job right, they followed the rules to get the best potential outcome possible. But what about the ones that didn't break the rules, that didn't follow the rules? The ones that bent the rules, that ultimately there could have been a better outcome had they had not bent the rules. There could have been a worse outcome also in some circumstances if people didn't end up bending the rules. And in those circumstances, the Department of Defense will give a plausible deniability. How's that? Medical release. All right? So, those ones that bent the rules and that things could have gotten better, when they come back, they're still in that same disguise. What disguise, you might add? The costume. The disguise. The disguise that they deserve to be amongst the ones that made it back. That, hey, they did their job. They followed the rules. Glamorize them. Well, how is that a disguise? Well, they went to do a job, but they ended up doing a different job, which ultimately could have compromised the job that they were supposed to do from being able to be executed. So, you know how they're glamorized? You know how that uniform and that valor and everything and that pedestal we're supposed to put them on? Yeah. Why should they get put up there with the ones that deserve to be up there. They don't. So, how is it a disguise? I'm still not understanding. Oh, because with them being glamorized, despite the fact of them not deserving to be acknowledged in the ranks of the people that executed their job within the best of their ability by following the rules, regardless of the outcome or potential occupational hazard or collateral damage, they did everything that they could for self-preservation. And they didn't do what they could to try to help somebody else that was in the same situation fighting for their self-preservation to have a chance to survive. So what does that mean? It means that they're pretentious cosplaying douchebags in hunting attire, wearing a shit ton of brooches, pretending to be a fucking hero. How could that be implemented across the board? Cops. Good cops. Bad cops. Good apples. Bad apples. Alright? The uniform. The attire when it comes to the cop. When it comes to authority. Alright? If I was given a lawful order and I ended up ignoring it, that would lead to prosecution. Given an unlawful order by somebody who expects somebody else to understand and know the rules that they themselves cannot explain the cause of the forming of that rule in front of his superior, which his superior is the judge that tells the cop if he is in the right or if he is in the wrong, or if she is in the right or if she is in the wrong, or if they are in the right or if they are in the wrong. So if you have the people that are supposed to be overseers, the cops, not wanting to bring the situation to the judge, then understand that means that the middlemen, the cops, the ones that know that the judge, being the overseer, their boss, the ones that, validate if they're right or wrong, they don't want to bring it to the judge because they know that the judge is going to call in front of everybody to clarify that they're wrong, and they don't want to be made a fool in front of the entire public audience of everybody in that courtroom. Do you now understand why public trials are important, and denying people of public trials is really a bad thing and sets a really bad precedence? And why the plausible deniability, the explanations need to be on the people wanting to prevent those conversations from happening? How do you remove the problematic people? Let's see. A court date that the law enforcement that was causing the problem doesn't know about. How could you go ahead and keep the middleman uninformed? Let's see. Making your trial not at a public venue, but over a fucking screen, which also sets a video with a time date to show the factor that they fucking showed up to that digital fucking court date and were following the rules and was a law-abiding citizen. Well, how do you do that? You need to find a safe space away from the middlemen. If the judge puts it in order with a mental health facility, the mental health facility, knowing that the cops are up to no good, will provide a space to speak to said judge, to let the judge know every bit of information that law enforcement, by tampering with evidence and tampering with witnesses, is trying to prevent the judge from knowing. So if the judge never knows, the cops see it as the judge, nothing was done wrong. Not only was nothing done wrong by the person that I accused of doing something wrong, but what we did wrong doesn't end up being brought to our judge, brought to our boss. So, That safe space provided by the mental health facility gives an opportunity for the victim, the person whose rights are being oppressed, to be able to clarify the judge. Fill me in. Let me know. What's all the gossip? What's the tea? Spill. Come on, girlfriend. What's everything you're hiding from me? What's everything involved? What stuff helped them be able to execute their plan? All right? Every bit of information that you could potentially think of. And hypotheses are welcome, but you have to let us know that it's a hypothesis. All right? That hypothesis needs to be plausible, possible. It needs to be able to fit within capability. All right? So, there's no way for this to be executable rather by human design or by machine design. So then, wouldn't be an actual possible hypothesis, because couldn't happen unless we exist in a cartoon. Okay. But you present everything so that way the judge can understand your train of thought. All right? And with that train of thought, go ahead and, try to put themselves in your shoes. All right? And try to wonder, how did they be able to come to such a point of logic? Like, how did they logically come to this conclusion? It's the equivalent of math. All right? It's like wanting to give somebody 0 credit, wanting to say somebody's answer was wrong, and be like, oh, no, they're just completely and utterly wrong. Well, giving partial points, because, there were some words that ended up going ahead and making the difference. Oh, in that equation, it said, show your work. So you didn't show your work, but you want me to believe that you got to the right outcome. You see my point? Oh, you want me to believe that the work was done too, but I don't see any results. Are you understanding the judicial process? And the funniest part is, lawyers' job is to go ahead and learn the rules that the judge has to follow, learn the rules that the cops have to follow, learn the rules that whoever the potential plaintiff or defendant is has to follow, all right? Literally, the reason that they get paid the big bucks, and you wonder, what purpose do they have? Relentless learning of a shit ton of different rules, policies, the way that they're implemented and tie in, and, the application of them interchangeably between consumer, provider, between tenant and landlord, between, parent and child, between administration and business. All right? So they make the big bucks because their job is to go ahead and learn all the rules. All right? Now, how is that an important job? Because they also have to learn the rules about your job. So if you're law enforcement or you're a judge, the lawyer has to go ahead and learn the rules you have to follow. All right? So if the judge doesn't follow the rules, or if, counsel, opposing counsel does not follow the rules, or if law enforcement, being the testimonial to your good work, does not follow the rules, that you know the rules to call, hey, the rules in this circumstance have not been followed. All right? So at that point, whoever didn't follow the rules has to explain why it is a rule in the first place, the usefulness of that rule, the positive results that have came from that rule, and why it was being expected that this person know said rule, while at the same time, the only people's word that he had to believe that, or the only word that they have to believe that they were following said rules was to trust that whoever it is that is handing the rules to them is being honest with them about what the fucking rules are. Do you understand how, if anything in that process ends up being disrupted, any part, it causes disarray, it causes chaos, it causes disorganization, it causes wrongful incarceration, it causes prosecutorial misconduct, it causes judicial misconduct, it causes wrongful termination. Are you seeing my fucking point?